This is a tutorial using C# in Visual Studio 2019 to demonstrate event handlers. Let's first look at what the application does, and then we'll see how we accomplish that. There's two forms on the screen. The one on the left will draw lines on this graph. This form over here needs to be told what and when to draw lines. The form on the right is the graph controller. It's going to define the lines, and when we click this button, it will essentially be telling this form to go ahead and now it's time to draw that line, and it will also be passing the parameters that are required that define that line. So let me type in a formula here, y equals 2x plus 40. And you'll see what this does. And we'll draw it in blue. So we'll draw this line. And once we clicked this button, that's the signal. We got to somehow signal over here that this line should be drawn. And we can draw another line. Let's make this a red line. And so now we've informed this form to draw another line. So let's look at the code as we do that. Try to visualize, remember this graph controller over here, there's not much to it. It just defines the line and has the button to kick things off, and then this form is the one that draws everything. So I'm in the Visual Studio code, and we're looking at the controller. This is the one that was on the right, the form on the right, the one that's pretty much driving everything. And the way we do that is this has to have an event that it raises and kicks off. So here's the primary statement for that. There's an event handler, and it has custom event args. We raise this event, but we have to tell people, okay, well, fine, an event, but what's in it? So here's the custom event args. It's the slope, intercept, and line color of a line. So go back to the controller over here, and we set up this event handler. We're going to be passing these args, and this is the name that we're going to use for raising that event. So looking at this a little bit in the backwards direction, the user clicks the button right here. We intercept that button click. And what it does is it says, okay, get me the slope from the formula that was in the text box, get me the y-intercept, get me the color from the radio buttons. And when you have that information about the line, put that information, the slope, intercept, and color, into the custom event args. And now Microsoft convention is to raise the event, you pretty much take the name of this event up here that you're raising, put the word on in front of it. So this is called raise draw line event. So this is on raise draw line event, and invoke that method. Now, because I've been screwing up here, I'm missing that method. So let me correct that a minute. Okay, I got that method back in here. So it calls this on raise draw line event, and this is really the key to what's going to happen. This question mark is C# syntax that just says if this is null, then don't do anything. But if it's not null, then invoke that event, raise that event with these args. And so let's jump over to the display, because it's the one that needs to retrieve, to be notified about those events. So how does it do it? Well, the way it does it is, first I've got this display is the one as my primary form. It's the one that gets launched when the application starts. And it goes and creates a game controller. And that's the one we were just looking at. And it shows it, and it places it a little bit side by side so they don't overlap each other. And then here's the main piece. It says, okay, look, graphing controller form, when you invoke that raise draw line event, I want to be notified of it, and I want you to notify it by calling this method here. And I've named it handle draw line event. So here's that method, handle draw line event, and it doesn't do too much. Let me digress here a minute and point out that the paint method does nothing more than draw lines based on a bunch of line definitions that we try to keep track of. And those line definitions have slope, intercept, and color. So this draw line event is going to get those arguments of another line in these custom arcs. It's going to get the slope, the y-intercept, and line color. So when this gets launched, when this gets called, we add a new line definition, and then we invalidate the screen so everything gets painted. So the controller sort of pushed that event, and we, if you want to use the word subscribed to it here, and because we're subscribed to it, it calls this method, and now we can get the information that we need and everything works. So you may want to pause the video. I've got these two classes side by side so you can see them at the same time. Over on the right is the controller. And here's, well, like we talked about, here's the guts of it. This is the guy that's raising events, giving the information about lines. And how does it do that? It does it by setting up the event args that we need and doing the on raise of that event. And here's that method. And then the guts of it is right here. And the minute this happens, then the code on this side has already been set up here to subscribe to those events. And it says, okay, I'm subscribed, and I want you to call this method when one of those events occurs. And so then in here we can just look at those event arguments and use them to create a line definition, add it to our list, and then we can paint the screen.